Hey, this is Mike Goldberg, the voice of combat sports, and you are watching the game plan. Here we go.
Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for the Game Plan in this special collaboration with sportsboom.com. I'm happy to be joined by my guest who's going to be talking all things combat sports and some hockey today. He is the veteran voice of combat sports. He's the one and only Mike Goldberg. How you doing, Mike?
I am good, Giancarlo. You're just growing now. It's this platform in collaboration with this, and soon to be live on NBC Sports. Like you're just jamming it, buddy. Congratulations.
Appreciate that. And Mike, you just were at an event there,
Yeah.
BKB. So what was it all like calling the action bare knuckle?
You know what, buddy? It was unbelievable because it was our 50th show. So it was BKB 50 Evolution. I started at BYB 6. My powerful partner, Paulie Malignaggi, started at BYB 5. That's when I visited everybody. And I'll tell you what, Giancarlo, I saw Paulie Malignaggi at the desk. And Paulie and I knew each other by 3 degrees of separation, but we had not met in person. And the minute I saw the Magic Man, I was like, all right, these guys are taking their broadcast very seriously. And here we are today. So to go from Dada's backyard to those early BYB extremes, to watching the fighters evolve, to watching our fan base grow, to new TV contracts. It was a great look at the past, which we will always honor. It was a celebration of where we have come. And truly, we're starting to put a spotlight on where we're headed. So a lot of great fights, a lot of great energy, and really something special for me to be involved in.
And it's great too because you mentioned there like where it started, the promotion, and also like Vice Sports involved. So these
Yep.
TV deals, it's getting more traction. And what is it like for you to be a part of this, like a growing sport, and just seeing it take off like that?
It's very similar or maybe virtually identical to a couple of decades ago when I was making the transition with everybody else at the Ultimate Fighting Championship from 2 men will enter the octagon, only one will leave. And then Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta come in and purchase it, and we start to grow and we start to embrace regulation. But still, we had spots like Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, Lake Charles, Louisiana. I remember, Giancarlo, we had a show in Iowa, and I thought, wow, we've made it now. We are big time. And then to see the evolution of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the entrance of Anheuser-Busch as a sponsor, which said more about the legitimacy of the sport, in my mind, than anything else, because AB only puts their money into real stuff. And so we became a major player. And so this ride is very similar. It's the rough and tumble backyard, famous because Dada 5000 was solving conflicts without people losing their lives back in Miami and the tough parts of Miami, Florida, to then starting to work towards a TV deal, to getting a TV deal. And we also are on TalkSport in the UK, which is one of the biggest platforms. And we just signed a deal with Telemundo from Mexico and a lot of Central America. So it's really come a long way, and it's exciting to be part of that. And truly exciting to see where it's headed, because we were reflecting, throughout the broadcast, Giancarlo, and I looked at Paulie in the open. I go, all right, tell me the truth. Did you think we would make it to this point? He just kind of laughed, and I go, yeah, I wasn't sure either. But here we are, partner, and it really is. I'm enjoying the ride and really cherishing it this time. And what I mean by that is we were so darn busy. We were in the tree so much with the UFC that now I am a little older, a little wiser. I'm taking a step back from time to time to check out the forest, and it's a pretty awesome view.
That's great. And you mentioned the UFC there, and they recently celebrated their new home there, Paramount Plus. They moved into the streaming model, $7.7 billion over 7 years. Like, you were a part of the promotion where they were just pretty much going to anybody to try to get a TV deal. So when you saw the growth of the UFC to now that kind of deal, like, does it feel more gratifying to you because of where you started with the promotion?
You know what? Yes, and honestly, it means a lot that you just asked that question, because present day is present day, but I know that Joe and we were the soundtrack of the real growth to what has developed into what it is today. But by the time I finished UFC 207, my last show in 2016, we were well on our way. It was just a matter of time till these new deals, the ESPN deal came across. But I was part of the time where The Ultimate Fighter Season 1 was something that Frank and Lorenzo paid $10 million to Spike to have them produce. I was there when that late night call from Lorenzo to Dana came going, you know what, we've given this a shot. We might just have to write this one off. And Lorenzo slept on it. And he said, all right, let's hold out. And then Spike came in. And so, yeah, it is very special. I do humbly feel like I was a very, very important part of the process and the growth And I was there at a time where Joe and I were not only expanding our own commentary, but also teaching new fans the basics every single show. And that was a fine line, Giancarlo, because I used to get, social media, which they're just so awesome out there. But like, why does he always ask the same questions? Doesn't he know this or that by now? And I'm thinking, all right, we don't want to insult those fans who have been here through the process to where we are today, but we have to teach the others. And so it was a very delicate balance. And it was kind of funny. And I'm thinking, because I love you for saying that, but we're gaining fans all over the world. And we had to give them the basics. We had to give them UFC 101.
And also, like, the reason I asked this, because the first event 2 weeks ago, they had this montage, this video package, and your voice is included in probably 80% of those calls. So all these years later that you've been removed from that, and they're still using your calls just to hide in the video package, it has to be rewarding for you.
Let's just say my phone was blowing up because the wait is finally over. And when I'm getting chills right now, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, that's the first thing the new Paramount Plus audience heard. The very first line of this new era for the UFC. And that's where it's so gratifying, because I know in my heart of hearts what I did and what I left and how hard I worked during the times that I was there for 19 years and about 200 UFCs. So it was very special to have my voice intertwined. And, you go back to the Open we used all the time, Teenage Wasteland and Stephen Bonner, Forrest Griffin, the whole bit. And, that always is very gratifying. And once in a while, I'll see it pop up old school on like YouTube or something. And I'll check it out. Because it was really a great way to start every event we did back in the day.
And also now, like, with the UFC, like, they're under the TKO banner with WWE. And I saw on Twitter the other day, or X, Brock Lesnar, the 18-year anniversary of his debut, and you're calling that with Joe Rogan. Like, what do you remember about that night? Because a lot of fans would probably say that, pro wrestling fans came in and became fans of other fighters because of Brock.
Without a doubt, Giancarlo. And that's exactly, there were many reasons he was brought in, but that was one of the major reasons that the UFC went and signed Brock Lesnar, was to broaden the audience. And I remember there were the superstars of WWE and the wrestling world all in attendance that night that Brock fought in the octagon for the first time. And people forget, and we've talked about it a lot, Brock Lesnar was 106-5 as a collegiate heavyweight wrestler at the University of Minnesota. So he was legit. So I remember what a major move that was for the UFC, how that did broaden the perspective, not only for the wrestling fans, and not only just Brock in the octagon, but then you're seeing The Undertaker, you're seeing, not Cold Stone, I know I messed it up.
It's all good. It's all good.
I still like, Cold Stone, Steve Austin. Actually, it's kind of funny. My buddy who does signs, neon signs, and in like strip malls, he had the contract for all the Cold Stone ice cream shops around the nation. And so I'm thinking of my next door Gary, and I'm like, Stone Cold Steve Austin. But people were excited about that as much as Brock in battle, seeing those who are in attendance, their favorite wrestlers or their favorite not wrestlers, but there are ones that they rooted against who wore the black hats. And yeah, it was a big turning point. It was a huge moment for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And I do remember that Brock Lesnar is the largest human being in great shape that I ever met in my life. I remember shaking his hand, and it was just like, and I don't have monster bits or anything, but it just like engulfed it in half my arm. Not quite Shaq-like, but pretty darn close. And Brock was really great to us. And, you know, I was always appreciative of Brock being so kind to both Joe and I.
And like we've seen all these sports too, like you're seeing it with BKB, like constant progression where I'm sure it's going to continue becoming more and more popular. With the UFC, it's reached a point where there's going to be an event at the White House. Like when you were there, did you think this is like the pinnacle right now? Like it doesn't get any more than that mainstream than you're having an event on the White House grounds.
You know, I believe by the time my tenure had concluded, we were mainstream. We were there. We had signed a contract with Fox, which was massive money at that time. They had renewed that contract with Fox. So without Spike, we're not having this conversation today. But when you're all of a sudden on Fox Sports Net, FS1, yes, but FS2 was basically the UFC channel 24/7. So I felt it was there, and it's only grown since that point. Did I think it would become, 7.7 billion for TV rights? Maybe not. But am I really surprised? No, not at all, because I had seen the trajectory, and I knew at that time, Giancarlo, it wasn't going to go down at all. It was going to go up. And you know what? Maybe there are too many fights now. Maybe it is tougher to know all the fighters and commit to watching all these fights. But people still love it. And when you talk about the Ultimate Fighting Championship, nobody dips their toe. They dive headfirst into the deep end, and they'll try to stay underwater as long as they can. But when they come up to the top, they still have the TV on and they're watching the UFC. The most passionate fans are MMA fans, and now I'm learning combat sports fans of bare knuckle boxing as well. But that is what has remained consistent. So no, I'm not shocked by the growth. Did I think there would be a UFC on the White House lawn? No, I did not. But I wish I was involved in it. I think it's pretty darn cool, and it makes a statement.
Great. And speaking of international events, the Olympics next week's going to be kicking off. And last time we spoke, kind of had to rub it in there. Canada beat the States. No big deal. 4 nations. But now there's going to be the NHL players returning for the first time since 2014. Like,
Yep.
just what is it like for you as an American hockey fan and just hockey fan in general to see the best on best truly competing for the medals?
It's always been very special. I mean, I remember the golden goal, unfortunately. Zach Parise scores with about 20 seconds left, forces the game to go into overtime, and then Jerome McGinley wins the battle in the corner, gets it over to Sid the Kid, and the golden goal was scored in 2010. And my son, whose mother is Canadian, I'm American. My son somehow forgot he was born in Snellville, Georgia. And the whole time he's like, Lou, Lou, Lou. And I'm like, dude, you need to settle down, 10-year-old, because mom might decide when you get a car, but I'm going to decide what type it is. So gear down, big rig, gear down. But I'm excited. I mean, look at how successful and competitive the tournament was. And to bring it back to the professionals playing in the Olympics, it's must-see TV for a hockey fan and for many others, and it will bring a lot more hockey fans into the fold. Here's where I have a problem, though. As you know, Giancarlo, I'm a diehard Sharks fan. You know where I'm going with this. My son, diehard Sharks fan. You know where Macklin Celebrini lives? With Joe Thornton. Mac's my guy. Like, he's amazing. The kid's amazing. I'm so excited about the Sharks after all these tough years. And so he's living with Jumbo. And by the way, Will Smith lives with Patty Marleau. So pretty good guidance there. But for Macklin Celebrini to become the first teenager in a non-college type year, in a full professional NHL players Olympic year, for him to become the first teenager to play for Team Canada, I'm very excited for Mac. It's going to be tough to root against him. But then again, I was born in the United States of America, and I do have my jersey signed by Mike Ruzioni. So I've got to go with that, but it is going to be something special. I thought Macklin was funny. Edmonton came back on us last week, and kind of gave up the 3-1 lead. But Macklin's comments about playing against Connor McDavid pregame were, well, I hope he's just okay tonight. But in a week or two, I hope he's sensational when we're on the same team. And it really is. It's another passing of the torch, and Macklin Celebrini is something very special. So I'm excited for Celebrini, especially being such a Sharks fan.
And he is, like, from what I've seen, he's an unbelievable player. There's a lot of hype around him. And I'm just curious, what's it like where you are? Because, like, San Jose fans, like, I'm sure they're constantly, like, talking about him, and they have every right to. But in and around, like, the United States, in terms of, like, USA hockey, what have you noticed the talk about Macklin Celebrini and even some of the other young stars on the Sharks?
Well, with Macklin Celebrini, they're definitely saying, well, we had Sid, and then we had Connor McDavid, and there were a couple in between, but really Sid changed the game. And then Connor McDavid came in as, oh, okay, this is the heir apparent to Sidney Crosby. If Sid, of course, ever stops playing, but he can play as long as he wants because he's still playing at a high level. And now it's Macklin Celebrini. And if you watch Macklin and the way he skates and his acceleration and the moves and the crossovers, very similar to Connor McDavid. Connor has the upper hand right now. He's also 6-7 years older. But that's how I see it from a hockey perspective. And that's how everybody who is an NHL fan, a hockey fan, sees it, especially the experts. I mean, the kid is 19 years old in his second season, and he's consistently been in the top 5 in scoring. He's been as high as 3, and then Connor will have a big game, or McKinnon will have a big game. But I think it brings a lot of excitement for the next generation of NHL fans, and obviously a ton of excitement for the San Jose Sharks. And then, the year before we drafted Mac, we drafted Will Smith, number 2. One guy played at BC, the other at BU. And Smitty's the real deal, too. Smitty's not getting the big attention that Macklin is, but it's not because Smitty isn't deserving of it. It's just that Macklin Celebrini is so incredible right now. And you know what? Much like Connor, much like Sid, he is so fun to watch. The things he does are just fun to watch. And me at 61 years old now, still playing men's league, Giancarlo, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I even tried to tie my skates like Macklin Celebrini, I'd break my ankle. But I'm playing still.
And does he, like, have a realistic shot at winning the Hart? Like, I know they do favor and probably lean towards McDavid, McKinnon, but you can't deny what he's doing. Like, if he wins it, like, will you be shocked?
I will not. I will not be shocked. But you do have the 2 men that you just mentioned that are ahead of him. They're ahead of him in scoring. I wish there was like a teenage category of the Hart, because he would have been given that trophy a month ago. But yeah, there's a lot of games left. And I don't see McKinnon or McDavid slowing down at all. And I don't know how Matt can pick up the pace. He's just killing it. But, and I don't want anybody to get hurt or anything like that, miss games. But yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of hockey left in the NHL regular season. And if he can get to that point, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And it would also, as a Sharks fan, make me very happy. Yeah, he's going to be a Hart candidate. He is right now. But, you have to say that Nate and Connor are the front runners. And more likely one of those 2 will get that big trophy. But I'll tell you what, like you said, Macklin Celebrini will be in the conversation at 19 years old. But now let's go back to Gretzky, playing in the WHA at 16 years old. Sidney, what age was he when he came into the league? Connor, how old was? So when you look and you really go back to Gretz, playing for the Indianapolis Racers of the WHA at 16 years old, then to me and to you as a great hockey fan as well, Giancarlo, then it really gets put into the proper perspective, and it's pretty darn cool. I do say that the Sharks will make the playoffs. I will say that.
Well, the Leafs, unfortunately, probably won't. So I'll be watching those
Yeah,
Sharks games.
but if they do, they'll lose in the first round. So you got that going for you, which is nice. And that's another guy too, though. Like, let's not pass over Auston Matthews. Good American kid too. I mean, between Sid and Connor was Auston Matthews. So let's not forget that he is also a generational talent, and he's doing everything he can for your Leafs. But somehow something goes against him all the time, and that's the one thing I do hold over my son though. 1967, 1993. Dad, Olympics, World Cup, blah, 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 blah. All right, dude. All right. So we have a good banter back and forth.
That's good. And also with Matthews, he's going to be leading the way there, him, Jack Eichel for Team USA. So what's the talk about Matthews? Is it worrying when you see him on the Leafs, unfortunately, come up short and then in the Four Nations, or are you optimistic for what Matthews can bring at the Olympics?
Other than Austin losing Connor McDavid in his sights for the game-winning goal in the Four Nations, because I love Auston Matthews, but that was on you, Auston Matthews, because all of a sudden, the greatest player in the world, Connor McDavid, if that's what he is to many right now, and he is to many, Austin, come on, you lost your assignment there. Other than that, yeah, I mean, to have Auston Matthews as an American and a leader, he's going to be surrounded by the greatest American players. And if you look back to the Four Nations and the Tkachuk boys, and it was a shame that Matty came down with an injury and then missed a lot of time. But Matthew Tkachuk, Brady Tkachuk, Jack Eichel, go to the blue line, the Hughes bro. I mean, you look at the different things that develop for Team USA, and if you're going in there as a Team USA fan, I'm really hoping, and I'm a believer, that Auston Matthews will play well and will make a difference.
It's going to be exciting to watch there next week.
Yeah,
but just going to transition a little bit to ask you some questions about your time as an NHL announcer, because Sergei Fedorov, his jersey got raced to the Raptors in Detroit. You called their games there in 97 when they won it all. So what are your thoughts on Sergei Fedorov's time as a Red Wing and finally getting his long overdue recognition there?
Well, I would agree 100% that it is long overdue. I'll tell you a couple of things about Sergei Fedorov. First of all, I've never seen Pavel Bure's right there though, but I've never seen someone so explosive from blue line to blue line. And explosive, obviously, throughout the game, but that man could accelerate like I've never seen before. Add the white Nike skates at the time, and he just looked faster and faster. And one of the greatest players in the history of the game of hockey, let alone the National Hockey League and the Detroit Red Wings. I also remember at the time that they were billeting, they were chaperoning Anna Kournikova. And so Anna was around downstairs, the locker room and stuff, and with all the Russians, of course, the Russian Five, but, with Sergei, and we were kind of like, all right, but good job, 91. And I'm not saying anything happened. I'm just saying it was a pretty cool visual for all of us in a polite way. So that is something. I remember my late father-in-law, rubbernecked, and my mother-in-law caught him right away and smacked him like, hey, eyes over here, eyes over here. But I agreed with Grandpa Tucker, my grandpa to my kids, of course. And the 5-goal game. I mean, the 5-goal game was unbelievable. And it was on December 26th. So as you know now, Giancarlo, they don't play Christmas Eve. They don't play Christmas Day. And as it is in Canada, they don't play on Boxing Day. So we're home for Christmas. Nobody wants to go to the rink on the 26th for a 1 o'clock game. And we're playing the Capitals. All right, Sergei with the first goal. Second, hat trick. Then the game continues, and Sergei Fedorov wins it in overtime with his 5th goal of the night. And that is as famous a call for the Red Wings as when I got to call the McCarty revenge game against Claude Lemieux, and of course, Vernon and Waugh fighting. But that day, to watch that brilliance of Sergei Fedorov, one of the most special moments that I've ever witnessed in hockey, let alone had the privilege to call. And so that day turned out as a pretty good boxing day. It's like, all right, if this is going to be how the game goes, it's unbelievable. But when you look back at those highlights, and I know you have,
Yeah.
you look at the puck movement though. Like Sergei exploded on it, but the puck movement with Konstantinov and down to Igor Larionov and back to Fetisov and then Kozlov, and just the puck movement on some of those goals, especially with Vladdy. Vladdy would see Sergei backdoor on 2-3 of the goals. And man, you know, obviously tragic what happened to Vladdy after the Stanley Cup winning, you know, season, just a day or two after. But if you really look at those goals, Sergei finished them, but they were some of the most beautiful plays that you'll ever see in hockey. And it truly was the Russian Five being the greatest Russian Five we had seen. And they changed the game. I'll tell you a funny story about that season too. Scotty Bowman at one point, and you know Scotty, the biggest control freak in the history of life. And that is probably putting it mildly. There was a look at me in fight mode now, post-game press conference one time, and Scotty was, you know, surrounded by microphones, and they asked about the Russian Five, like, how do you coach them? And Scotty Bowman said, I don't. They know what they're doing. I can't understand it, so I'm not going to get in their way. So for Scotty to say that, it was pretty special, and they were very special to watch play together. And then Dougie Brown was kind of the sixth Russian for a long time that would be on that line once in a while, and then you get Shanny in there. But it's just some of the most beautiful hockey that I'd ever seen. And now the cool thing modern day is that style of hockey is played by the modern day player pretty much every night. And to see the teams and the players grow like that, hockey is better than it's ever been, and it's just going to continue to get better and better.
You mentioned Konstantinov there, and I saw he was there that night when Fedorov had his jersey retired, and some fans I saw online like didn't know who he was, and you know, some getting history lessons of it, Google his name. So it's good that they had him there, but like you mentioned, their tragedy struck. Like, how good of a player would you say Konstantinov was before that unfortunate tragic happened to him?
He was the most dangerous player on the Red Wings. And he was one of the most dangerous players in a clean way in the entire National Hockey League. You think of Scott Stevens back in the day and, you know, catching Paul Kariya coming across top of the circles. I know you always know where I'm going.
Yeah.
In that hit. Well, Vladdy was the destruction machine. Vladdy would hit everything, and he was physical. He could crush people, but he also had the mobility. He had the puck movement skills. He had the defensive skills. He and Fetisov together. Vladimir Konstantinov would have been, in my mind, if he would have stayed healthy, would have been a Hall of Famer. Very likely would have been a Hall of Fame player. He was that good. And I remember that night that it happened, I was at a bar with a bunch of friends, and all the players had their last get together at the golf course, and they all had limousines. And they did it right. That's what is most heartbreaking. And Sergei Monatsikhanov, who was our physical therapist and was kind of the liaison for the Russians, was also badly injured in that same accident. And I remember it. I remember it coming on the news. And when it came on the local news, the first report was that Sergei Fedorov had died in the car crash, that he was killed. And then they took it back. But to see Vladdy the way he is today, it's just sad. It's just one of life's sad things. It's really sad because the team was doing it right. Nobody, you know, they were having their beers, they were having their last laps, but none of them are driving. So that's not supposed to happen. You made the right choice, and it did. The Red Wings have done a very good job with keeping Vladdy in the mix. Obviously, the Russian Five will always do so. But yeah, it's really difficult to look at one of the best defensemen in the game and one of the most dangerous and athletic players to come out of Russia, but really anywhere. To see him how he is today is heartbreaking, but to see him still around and still able to understand enough and get that smile from Sergei and acknowledge as much as he can, it's heartwarming. But at the end of the day, it's tragic and it's really sad. It's really sad, and it breaks my heart every time I see Vladdy on TV in the condition he is today.
Yeah, and just even on that too, like your time in the league, you spent time also Minnesota,
Yeah.
called those games, and a lot of NHL games I've followed. And I like to ask the announcers this because you see so many players come up during your time there. Was there one opposing team's player where you remember just being in awe of what you were watching on the ice?
Oh man, who would it have been at that time? You know what? When I was calling games, all right. Okay, it was on ESPN, so there wasn't an opposing player, but I absolutely loved Peter Forsberg. Because remember, Don Cherry would always talk about the Europeans were soft and this and that, and they don't play hockey right, and all that fun stuff, right? Forsberg was tough. He was skilled. He was competitive. Peter Forsberg was unbelievable, unbelievable. And my time with the Minnesota Wild, I got to see another superstar who skated like Pavel Bure, who skated like Sergei Fedorov in Marian Gaborik. Marian Gaborik was the top pick of the Wild in the expansion year. Gabby scored the first shorthanded goal in the opener at Anaheim. He scored the first goal, and then apropos, Darby Hendrickson, Minnesota's own, scored the first Wild goal at home. So you got, the Minnesota kid scoring the first ever goal in franchise history at home at the XL Energy Center for the Minnesota Wild. Who always scared me? Who always killed us at that time? I mean, it might have been a Stamkos by that point. I mean, there were so many good ones. I mean, it might have still been Joe okay, Joe Sakic. When I was with the Wild, Burnaby Joe, who I happen to love. Burnaby Joe. Joe Sakic was the one who always upped us. Mike Modano was one that always upped us. And so those were the big stars of the opposing teams. But guys, I also had the pleasure to call their games when I was at ESPN. Pavel, let's not forget about Pavel Bure and how good he was, though. I mean, the Russian Rocket. He hits the post. If he doesn't hit the post, then you could say 1994 for Canadian teams instead of 1993.
And he's another one too. Injuries kind of derailed
Yeah.
his career a little bit, and just even on that too, like Joe Thornton, you saw him as an opposing player. Did you see like if he was going to go on to win the Stanley Cup, would that have changed his legacy at all?
No, not in Jumbo's case. In some, yes, he did this and that, but he never won a cup. I don't believe it did at all. I really had hoped that he would get one because he was such a great ambassador to the league. He is my all-time favorite player. His jersey that he signed to my son is right there on the other side of my office. We were honored to be there when they hung 19 in the rafters at the Shark Tank. And we were part of the Jumbo family with our VIP passes. My son and I were like, let's go, and got to see everybody. But yeah, Joe Thornton, I do not believe his legacy was tarnished because you look at the numbers and you look at the assists. I do remember some fun stories, though. There were so many times and Todd McClellan was coaching back then, and they'd have these video sessions, and Jumbo had a chance to vary it, but he'd always wait and make the pass. And I remember one time Todd McClellan's like, hey, you got to shoot that puck. You got to shoot that puck, Joe. And he just said to the coach, he goes, Coach, I'm a disher, not a goal scorer. I'm a disher. And I'm sure that dish ended up in a goal. But Joe, the character that Joe has and always will have on and off the ice, the effect that he had on the league, the way that he could move the puck and make other players better, very much like, Hall and Oates back in the day. Even Gretzky. People forget Gretzky had 3 times more assists than he had goals. Those great playmakers, Jumbo is amongst those. Ronnie Francis in career assists. And he's unselfish. He's a great leader. I'll tell you another good Jumbo story. So why it ever happened, who knows? But if you recall, they did give it to Little Joe, and I love Joe Pavelski, and I wanted to see Joe get a cup too. But when they stripped Jumbo of the C and they gave it to Little Joe, well, Joe's reaction was, if it's going to go to anybody, I want it to go to Paps, and it did. So Jumbo had the A. So Jumbo and some of the boys had come to a UFC. We were at Red Rock afterwards. Jumbo was, in the high rollers, suite, if you will, with his blackjack games. And Mark Delagrati was with me. And Mark's a Boston native, of course. And obviously Jumbo started there. And so I introduced Mark to Joe and I go, former captain of the San Jose Sharks. And what did Joe say? No, I said, captain of the San Jose Sharks. And he looked at Mark and he goes, former captain of the San Jose Sharks. And just the way with the humbleness that he said it, it was like, Jumbo, you're a beaut. And that's a hockey word anyway, man. You're a beaut, Jumbo. By far my favorite player. And he is definitely having an effect on Macklin Celebrini, because where do you want to live as a young kid? Where do you want to bill it? Like, you put the top two players in Sharks history, their jerseys hanging in the rafters, 12 and 19 with Patty and Jumbo. It's going to be special. And I guess Mac helps Joe's kids with their math and stuff. And it's really cool. But there are some who are tarnished. Maybe Jeremy Roenick, they said never won a cup. But then again, look at what JR did before the injury started to pile up. Would his legacy be any different with a cup? Not in my mind. Not in my mind. He still put up the numbers. And he played with a Stanley Cup attitude year in and year out. So I always wished. And then, when Pavs was in Dallas, I wanted Dallas to win. And then when Bernsey was in Carolina, because I wanted some of my guys to get a Stanley Cup. And, who knows? Maybe there's a future for Bernsey still. But, I always wanted to see Jumbo and Patty raise the cup. But what they did was Stanley Cup worthy during their long careers.
So you must have been a Leaf fan then, because Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton for a good 4-year stretch. We had some hope there, but they didn't get the job done, unfortunately.
Yeah, I said to Jumbo, I go, all right, I get it. It's COVID and you want to play so mom and dad can come up the street and watch you play. His parents are the nicest human beings ever. You could see where Joe gets it from. And then we was Florida. And like, I didn't care if he played every other game, if he played 2 or 3 shifts. Give him the cup. Let's go Panthers. But no. Sorry, Giancarlo. I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Teal for life for Patty and Joe. But I did love it, bud, because it was, for both of them, an opportunity at that time to win a cup. So I was happy for them to be put in that situation, and then saddened that it didn't happen.
You and me both. Struggling longtime Leaf fans. So,
I tell you.
Mike, before we wrap up here and let you go, how can our viewers here and listeners at the Game Plan stay up to date with everything you're doing and BKB and follow you on social media?
Goldie on TV. So creative, right, Giancarlo? Goldie on TV, on X, on Instagram, and BKB. Go to BKB, bare knuckle boxing. You put BKB in, and it will pop up on every social media site. And our social media has also raised their game up, because our organization has raised their game. And you'll see a lot of great posts, a lot of excitement about where BKB is today. But still Goldie on TV. I guess I'll always be Goldie on TV. People used to always, and actually my email is, one of my emails is sportsmike16, Bobby Clark, sports, Mike. And people always would say, like George Gurgel one time said, dude, why do you always do this in every picture? Like, you don't fight. Like, kidding me, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm holding my microphone, George. He's like, oh, okay. And so we had a good laugh about it. And, oh, by the way, my wife, Fernanda Silva, actually at our press conference down in Miami, we had Bianca Daimoni in one of the title fights. And Fernanda was up on the stage with me being the interpreter for her Brazilian sister and working her Portuguese. It was pretty cool. It was a family moment, especially seeing my son works for BKB as well.
Oh, that's great. And it was great to see you there. So it's a family affair there. Everyone's involved there with BKB. And Goldie, I really appreciate you sharing your time and coming on here to talk all about this. And I wish you all the best. And
thank you.
All I can say is go Canada, go. But I know you're going to be saying go USA.
I am. And, here's the funny thing. This year at the World Juniors, the only reason and this is very true, the only reason I was somewhat pleased that Canada got knocked out when they did is so my son didn't have a year to say, oh, you didn't even make this and that, you didn't even medal, and we won again after US won the last two. That's the only reason. So I don't blame it on the fine Canadians. I love Canada. I play hockey, but I was happy that it took the yapper and it shut him up. And now it's going to be ready to go again in Milan. That's for certain. But man, I'm happy to see your growth. We've been doing this a long time, and I've been able to see you expand and evolve. And you know me, buddy. Anytime you want to do something, took us a little bit with schedules, but anytime you want to talk and do a podcast together, I'm always here. It's never going to be a no, my friend.
Greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much, Mike.
Always a pleasure, bud.